Take two, everybody. Wow. Okay, so my computer completely froze on me. It like I had the spinning wheel of death. Apparently, some of you could still hear me at the time, but I couldn't do anything on this side. Spinning wheel of death. So I had to reboot everything. I'm back now. Hopefully, I haven't lost everyone. And you're gonna come on and jump for this lovely discussion about take that mechanics. So let me just get back over here to the comments. I can see who ends up coming on back here. And again, Kurt Covert from Smirk and Dagger Games, and talking something about that's really near and dear to my heart. For 14 some odd years, I did nothing but backstabbing games. So I am a de facto expert in the take that mechanic. And I was starting to talk about really the differences in some of the terms, the more nuanced things you might not know right away. So as I started talking about the difference between, screw your neighbor, take that, backstabbing tactics, what are all these things, and are they different at all, or are they all complete synonyms? Well, as I had been talking about, I truly believe there are some major differences. I think the broad category of a lot of the mechanics truly are take that. So that can be synonymous with kind of screw your neighbor and that sort of thing. But again, I really talk about these are acts during a game that hinder the forward progress of another player. That's the stealing, the nullifying, the discarding, reversals of fortune, all those terrible things that you do to slow someone down, and they tend to be fairly temporary. You might get a temporary boost or a change in position. But as we start talking about backstabbing, I had started to asking people, well, all right, what do they really think the difference in backstabbing was? And we had a couple people among them saying, yeah, no, backstabbing is really, the difference is there's cooperation throughout the game. Because in order to backstab, you have to have some sort of a trust, some sort of alliance that you have, a social contract that said, we're not going to be doing terrible things to each other until that changes. So this is actually tactics that are, you're attacking someone. It is deceitful, underhanded, treacherous, and it is a betrayal of trust. So as we start talking about those games that, might go one way or the other, Cosmic Encounter is certainly one that I consider much more of a backstabbing game because you are making and breaking alliances willy-nilly. We talked about Survive, which is a game that I love. And this game, you don't start with any notions that you're going to be working together. So if I'm sending whales and sharks your way to sink your boats and make sure my guys get to safety and my points go up, well, those are terrible take that mechanics to pull on someone. But as the island sinks, I have no qualms about doing those things, and it just makes it a great and fun game. And yeah, this is definitely like Heather was talking about. This is a great family game too. This is for everybody. Now, I have famously talked about Wiz War as being the game that set me on my path of appreciating the delightfulness of take that and backstabbing games. Wiz War is absolutely a game where it is about take that. There's no illusion that we are working together. And if I can seal you behind a wall where you have to punch with your fist for 3 turns to get out, oh, it's a delightful moment, and I relish it. So, but yes, it is take that for sure. Diplomacy, on the other hand, again, we need to work together. We need to create these alliances, and I think diplomacy has such a reputation for like the friendships it can break, because there's a deep investment. It takes so long to play that, yeah, quite honestly, with that kind of investment, it comes down to the one last betrayal. That is absolutely crushing to your heart. Dead last. So now dead last, again, this is a game of betrayal. So this is absolutely a backstabbing game, and it's a social collusion game, where you are making those deals during play in very secretive ways, because if you let the target know, they're going to defend themselves. So it's about silent communication. It's about eyebrows raising and then nods and winks and all sorts of things. But very much a backstabby game, and for that matter, so is intrigue. And it says right on the box, betrayal and banishment. And actually, I really like when games are super clear about what they are in fact going to deliver you, because as we start talking about oops, nevermore, hold on a second, I'm just going to skip by this though, get out of there. You're just going to be a pain, aren't you? Yes, you are. There we go. This is what I wanted. When we actually get down to take that mechanics versus a take that game, I think it's really important when we start talking about these games that we understand that having a take that mechanic does not make it a take that game. And I think some of the early take that games, or you may even think of some contemporaries, where there are some misplaced take that mechanics. It might be something that is otherwise not really a game that is founded on the appeal and delight of being a take that game, that it's all about take that as the core and the heart of the interaction that you're having. And that's why putting those kind of things on the box is important, because player expectation is the key. It's the key to having people make a social contract and understand that, yep, I'm walking to this game. I know what it's about. I know that people are going to do terrible things to me. I'm ready for it. I don't want to get caught in it, but I'm going to be doing the same thing to you. So it's just a matter of when and how and who has the upper hand in the end. But it's not a surprise. And that's really the big difference. Sometimes a misplaced take that mechanic in a game is destructive to the game. If it's much more of a resource management game, more of a Euro in its heart and core, and you throw a take that mechanic in there, it just doesn't belong. And if you catch someone by surprise, that's where they feel like the game is unfair and they really want to flip the table. I mean, there's certainly, I think it's safe to say that any take that mechanic or take that game is polarizing, because, some people just dig it, some people don't. But the take that game is not about fairness of the game or the surprise that, I didn't even know this was part of the game. You enter knowing it is. And that is really the difference. Now, of course, there's metagaming. There's all kinds of grudge matches. They can be friendship breaking, but by and large, when you enter, that's what you're in for, and therefore it's okay. That's the social contract. We know what we're actually in for here. So yeah, I always telegraph that on the box, and I think it's important that any take that game does so. All right, so let's see now. One other term, let's see, I don't see any other comments out there. If you are out there and still watching, just drop me a comment and make sure this is still working. And as you're doing so, think about some of your favorite take that or games of betrayal and honestly, tell me why. Like, what is the piece of that game that really delights you? As I start going into this next piece of this puzzle here. And this is the semi co-op area. Okay, people are out there. All right, I just want to make sure I was connecting. So I see Wyatt and Per8 King. I don't know how to say that. Oh, and CJ. Cutthroat Caverns Legacy. So yes, at some point we will see about being able to pull off a Cutthroat Caverns Legacy game. I don't even know what that looks like yet, but it fills my heart with joy to have you say that. So we'll examine that. The look on someone's face as you might hero them. So yeah, that is a wonderful moment in Cutthroat Caverns, certainly, when there's a card called My Hero, where you are about to take on a whole bunch of damage, and you play a card that forces all that damage onto another player that you choose, and then the card actually says, and thank them for their act of heroism, which is just a poke in the eye on top of, it's the insult to injury. So let's talk a little bit about semi co-op. And this is a little bit more nuanced yet. Semi co-op is very much a style of game where there is some degree of needing to work together in order to achieve the goal of the game. But of course, there's only going to be one winner. And so that's the semi. At some point, you have to act more selfishly than for the group and the team. And very often, I think backstabbing games kind of get placed in the semi co-op definition, and I think fairly so. But in this case, because so much of it is negotiation and then betrayal, I mean, that's really the backstabby part. But the semi co-op is something that I think can be even more nuanced. And so when Cutthroat Caverns actually first arrived, it got a lot of recognition for breaking some new ground in the semi-co-op arena, because it didn't require negotiation to fuel the semi-co-op nature. And there may have been other ones that had done that previously, but this one was really one that forced you to have to work together or you were all going to lose. But at some point, if you don't act selfishly, if you don't betray your party members, you're not going to win. And so you had to stay alive, but you had to have the most prestige, and that meant killing the most creatures. So it was a very different way to do a semi co-op. That was a little groundbreaking. And there may be some others out there that you're aware of too that really have done this well. And if you have any, drop that in the notes below and let's talk about them. But let's talk a little bit about Cutthroat Caverns, just because I think this was certainly, it's the game that I'm probably the most known for, and it's one that I think I take potentially a lot, the most pride, a lot of pride in, and that's because not only is it just I think a fun and funny game. I've talked a bit about, and some people have heard this story about how it actually came to be, the inspiration for the game, and that really came from the disparity between two role-playing groups in my long history as a gamer. When I was in high school, I had a D&D group, which, of course, weirdly, back in the 80s, it was me and 6 women, all from the drama club, and we played a Dungeons and Dragons campaign, and it was Tolkien. It was super. Absolute, like, lawful good. If you found a magic weapon, by God, it went to the person who could wield it best. And with my compliments, here, take this. And it was all about relationships. It was all about adventure, and everyone had everyone's back. So there is a huge contrast when I went to college and I started playing with a bunch of guys in Syracuse, and the DM had allowed people to have any alignment they wanted, and so quite a lot of the characters were neutral, chaotic evil. They were assassins, they were rogues, they were like it was some serious mental change I had to make, because all of a sudden, as I had party members, essentially executing NPCs by dropping rock rub on their eye sockets while they were drunk and powerless, like I was like, what is going on? And I suddenly realized that I had much more to be afraid of from these other players than I ever would the DM. And that feeling of shock and horror is absolutely what ended up being the inspiration for Cutthroat Characters. I wanted to have a game where I had people experience that shock and horror and distrust of everyone around them, and keep it going throughout the entire game. You knew you had to work together, but you knew you couldn't trust them. So Brad says, this needs to be a Netflix series like Stranger Things. It would be fabulous. Quite honestly, it would be just running that campaign itself. With at least one person who to be the audience member in that group, to have the shock and horror at all the terrible things that they were doing, it would be a hysterical special. I agree with you. And of course, this came through with the characters as well. So here we've got Nyx. You'll notice that all the characters end up with these lines. Nyx goes unnoticed, leaves unscathed, lines her pockets, and trusts no one. And of course, they all seem to trust no one. So Vasha spills blood, sunders hearts, takes what she wants, and trusts no one. And of course, that is absolutely what the game is all about through and through. That's CJ. D10 Little Indians by Agatha Christie. Yes, and quite honestly, that's really kind of where Dead Last lived, was that 10 Little Indians with everyone kind of dropping off. Heather says, let's see, I have to love the upstate New Yorker mentality. As one from the Ithaca area, I speak from experience. Well, it was new to me, I can tell you. I was it was shock and awe, and covering my head and hoping I could stay clear of the fray. So now Cutthroat Caverns is interesting because I think it might have been Quentin Smith who said it was ridiculous how much variety comes from just a few different mechanics in Cutthroat Caverns, and each of the creatures is really what powers the game. And they're just tweaked slightly and yet create such very different scenarios for you to test how good or how terrible you're going to be. And obviously, this is a game where I put a lot of psychology into this game. Every single one of these is essentially a little psychological experiment. I have built a honey trap in every single one of these creatures. I have created a scenario where there is a danger, and you should absolutely work together and just knock these things silly and walk out of here as a happy group. But only one of you is going to win, and therefore I create these little rewards that are going to benefit you, even if they damage you and everyone else, or especially someone else, in unique ways. And where is going to be the tipping point for you? How far are you going to take it? And it's really interesting to see all of that come to pass and watch players. And there's actually going to be next week, I should tell you, I'm going to actually bring James Simpson on, who is from Cell Block Studios. He actually worked with me to develop the Cutthroat Caverns app. And we are going to talk about how we took all of those things that I saw, player personalities, different ways that people tend to act. And I've seen this game 1,000 times, with different people, but there tend to be like buckets of the way people think and behave and react to betrayal. And creating AIs that would act like that, well, that's going to be the subject of next week. So stay tuned for that one. And yes, Brad, yes, there's an app. So there is going to be, by the way, a super special offer next week, which I'm going to remind you of again at the end of this broadcast. Let's see. CJ, do a holiday party theme game where no one wants to ruin the party, but everyone pushes someone else to spend time with Aunt Martha, who natters on and on. Semi-co-op party time. Yes, and I may have been at a party like that at one point. Let's see. So in any case, let's see. But yeah, so all these different creatures really act very differently. And again, for those who don't know, Cutthroat Caverns, which originally launched back in 2007, came out, I think now a year and a half, 2 years ago, with a whole rebooted version and upgraded all the elements, all the art, tightened down the rules, got rid of all the vagueness that led to like a FAQ as long as my arm. But yeah, just really revamped the game and made it a much more tightened down and beautiful experience. But all of the cards really, they're there to have lots of different purposes. And as I was working with James on how to create the logic for the app, we had to come up. I had to think about each card and its use in every situation against every monster. And sometimes those cards and their uses change drastically. For example, like, here, this is a creature that the Necromancer, where we absolutely have to work together, because every round that passes where we are not working together and killing this creature, a creature we've already killed comes back to haunt us. And everyone better work together or we are all going to perish. It's one of those few moments in the game where there's no question. Let's put down all our differences and get to work on killing this thing. Where, of course, fear keeps on growing with every round. And so it also gets a lot more valuable. So you want to keep it alive, maybe to get it higher and higher. But eventually it's going to overwhelm you. So again, at some point you've got to work together no matter who kills this thing. Hate, everyone could discard their cards and hate would go away. We can decide to choose love, people. We really, really can. Except in Cutthroat Caverns, there's at least one person, maybe two people, that decide not to. We decide that because we get the first swing if we throw the highest attack card away, that means we're going to get the first swing. But then we take all our discarded cards, we add them together, and that becomes the hit points. So if we all discard high cards, wanting to be the first swing, we're going to be fighting a very dangerous creature that swings for as much health as it started with. And that's going to knock out a lot of people. Let's see. Oh, Heather says, this is the bestseller in our shop. Really? Oh, that's wonderful to hear. Thank you so much. Just love Cutthroat Caverns and all of its expansions. Yes. And we have not yet reprinted any of the expansions with the new art, but the expansion 5, which is Death Incarnate. Let me take a moment just to tell you about Death Incarnate. I think it is the best expansion we have ever done for Cutthroat Caverns. I think up until that point, maybe Relics and Ruin was probably my favorite and had the most important game-changing things in it because it was first to add the event deck. But Death Incarnate is all about the incarnation creatures. And those creatures are amongst the toughest and most interesting throughout the history of the game. This includes, I think, 27 new incarnations. So you're facing off against, man, who do we've got, I think we have Lust in there. We've got Death. You're actually face to face with Death trying to knock him down. And when he swings at you, the first thing that happens is you lose all your cards. And then if he hits you again, you're dead. That's it, just dead. There's such amazing things. And then all the relics and all the events all link to those same incarnations. So the powers of the incarnations are items with magical abilities that have their powers imbued in them. The events recreate some of their environments. They're essentially like their lair, where those same kind of effects are now overlapped on the game of whoever you're fighting. If you have not seen Expansion 5, you definitely need to take a look. This was something that I worked on with Jonathan Loveley. It's amazing. He had such interesting and innovative concepts for these incarnations. They are not to be missed. So, and of course there are token creatures, right? So Wolfpack, Boogans too, but Wolfpack, they all attack every time the round is over and they're not dead. Another wolf joins the pack, and they all attack just one player. So if you don't kill them, they start stacking up and they are wiping people out. And again, it's one of those kind of curves. If the curve gets too out of balance, if you're not working hard enough to work together, it's going to destroy everyone. And I think that's really what makes Cutthroat Caverns kind of unique in this way. The creatures, the scenarios, they don't require negotiation. In fact, there's very little negotiation between players per se. There might be someone really encouraging us, guys, let's not mess with each other. We got to kill this thing. But it's very much kind of a group realization. It's not like I'm now going to create this one little trust moment with you and then betray that trust. It's that we all at the same time have this trust that we should be following, and then can't help but break for our own selfish needs. It's like being Boromir. It's a whole table of Boromirs in Lord of the Rings. So Heather says, I love how much you've developed a mythos around it. I've turned it into a campaign, very easily. Yes, and that was one of the fun things about creating the adventure modules, the books where we overlaid the the choose your own path adventure on top of the gameplay. And when we did that, it really did start to have a real narrative, and you felt like you were really in the story. And of course, Mad God's Maze is, I think, amongst my favorite of those. That was in Tombs and Tomes, where Loki is actually looking for his incarnation, to a helper to go out, but he needs to make sure that you are the right person, and he's going to be scoring, as you guys go and fight your battles. He's taking his own notes about who is the most the most well suited to the task. It's terrific. CJ, yeah. Please, not the face. Yes. So anyway, guys, I think there really is kind of this nuanced area, and I would love for it to become even more common to talk about take that versus backstabbing, and identifying which are mechanics and which are games that are truly dedicated to that experience as an overall theme for the game. And again, telegraphing that when that exists super important. And deciding whether or not those mechanics are really right for a game that is not focused on that kind of interaction, that's probably things that, end up leaving a really bad taste in people's mouths. Um, you know, yes, people are always going to take that game's polarizing, but once you have that social contract, once you say, you know what, that's what we're in for, everyone understands it, right? Cool. Then no one's going to have a really, really hard time with it. Though I will say, as a result of my many, many years of playing and developing these kind of games, I always have at least one person who is just absolutely dedicated to taking me out, and so my dear friend Justin is anytime we play a game together, it doesn't even have to have backstabbing mechanics. He is just gunning for me all the time, and but you know what? I think I deserve that. So anyway, well, thanks so much for joining me. Again, next week, we're going to take a deep dive into a topic about Cutthroat Caverns and the app, and how you make a computer behave like a jerk. How do you program emotional driven AIs that simulate the kinds of play styles that we see actually at the table with Cutthroat Caverns. And we are also, at the very end of that show, we are going to be announcing a special offer. So be sure to tune in for that. That'll be, again, next week's this same time, right around 4:30. And if you haven't already, go ahead and like or subscribe to I don't know, whichever format you're watching, whether that's here on Facebook or YouTube or Twitch. So we appreciate that. And whoa, what is this? What is the deal on the app? What is the deal on the app? CJ, I don't understand the question. What is the deal on the app? Yes. Well, if people didn't know, the app has been out for probably 2.5 years now. It contains all the updated artwork and mechanics from the most recent version of Cutthroat Caverns. It allows it's all solo play, which is why the AIs had to behave like emotional humans. And it is on both iOS. It's available for Google Play, Android devices. And it's variable game time, so you can play it for 3 encounters or 6 encounters or a full game of 9. And you can even select the difficulty. If you want your creatures to be even tougher than they are, you can ramp them up. So, in fact, you can even create your own custom dungeon. If you haven't checked it out, go over to the App Store and take a peek. But again, you may want to wait till next week so we can announce our fine, exciting offer. But in any case, until then, have yourself a great week and have fun gaming. Thanks so much, everybody.